to this computer. There we go. All right, so let me bring up Gwen here. It's about 5 minutes. And again, I just suggested that she could probably cut about 1.5 minutes out of it. And it'll be even more powerful. So we'll see what you think here. All right.
Okay. Do you remember when you first entered the veterinary field? You may have imagined treating fluffy animals that always got better, and clients who listened to your recommendations then left 5-star reviews. But maybe now you're feeling discouraged and exhausted because so many animals come in with preventable problems. And the clients, well, they don't always have the money to give needed veterinary care. You need to run a profitable practice, but they accuse you of not caring because you can't give away your services. I'd really like to share something that's happened in my life that's reminded me how important the little things we do every day helps our patients, their families, and ourselves. You see, about 20 years ago, I worked in a full-service veterinary practice in Denver, Colorado. It was a gorgeous spring day with the tulips peeking through the ground and the last snowstorm kind of melting away into the mud. And on this kind of day, this is where I met Jim and his dachshund, Ollie. They'd come in for a routine exam, and it was evident that they adored each other. Probably the most obvious sign was Ollie's shape. He was just kind of round, and his belly hung about 1/2 inch above the ground. When he looked at Jim, his tail spun like a propeller. The three of us really got to know each other in all the visits that we had, and each time I learned a little bit more about them. You see, Jim, he was a firefighter who lived now in housing on Social Security. He had been able to come to us because of our financial assistance, our payment plans, and slightly lower costs. He had to stop working because of his drinking, and now Ollie helped him stay sober. They did everything together, and at every visit, Jim would tell me about Ollie's latest adventures while Ollie gazed at him in adoration. I did my best to convince Jim not to feed Ollie every single treat that he asked for. One day, Jim came in because Ollie wasn't eating, which for Ollie was a very bad sign. I did an exam and we ran some tests while Jim comforted and worried about Ollie. And it turned out Ollie had inoperable liver cancer. He did okay for a short time on palliative care, but it wasn't long before I saw Jim for Ollie's euthanasia. I remember standing with Jim looking down at Ollie's body. Jim had tears running down his face, and he so gently stroked Ollie's ears. I don't know what to do. He said, I don't want to go home. I don't know if I should get another dog. And I don't think I ever have the right answer to that, but we talked about how everybody mourns in their own way and that he would know when it was the right time. We parted and promised to touch base the next day by phone. Imagine my surprise when Jim answered the phone and I heard a puppy barking in the background. He told me with the happiest sounding voice ever that he just knew if he went home alone, he'd start drinking and he'd never stop. It was probably about a week later when I got to meet Buddy in person for his first puppy exam. And he was the most fit, most energetic, most sharp-toothed puppy I had ever met in my life. And Jim was over the moon happy. Over the time I was at that clinic, Buddy and I were able to build quite a relationship. And I was honored to watch his waistline expand rapidly with Jim's love. Now, Jim taught me so much. He taught me most of all that there's no end to what pets and people can give each other. Some people may judge Jim for having an animal when he didn't have the money to do care for it the way they thought was right, but he was doing the best he could with a difficult situation. And he gave his dogs the best. Through creative payment options and treatment plans, we can help families stay healthy longer. And really, doesn't it feel better to help than to not? If you can't do that in your own practice, then look up for the local clinics that can and the programs that can help. That way you're not sending them away, you're sending them to what they need. I know that by creating space for those in need, you will remember why you entered this field in the first place. Thank you.
All right. That is excellent. We'll get you right at about 5 minutes, 23 seconds. So there's the first one. And hello, Melissa. Welcome. Glad to have you here. What did you think of Lucy's, or not Lucy, but Dr. Gadd's overall story there?
I caught the last half of it. It was very good, but I didn't catch the first half, which I think would have been important. So I apologize for my lateness.
No problem. Lucy, Ben, any thoughts there?
I think she did really well. I think your feedback of like shortening would help a little bit.
Yeah. And I think she was a little bit nervous last week when we did that.
I'm nervous.
I just said, don't worry, because the whole thing is the audience is on your side. The crowd is like, they were like, all right, let's go. Let's have some fun with this. And so you don't, if you get nervous, it just means your ego is at play, which is completely natural. But just go ahead and park your ego and just say you're there in service to your audience. You're sharing this story in service to them. And then I have found that your nerves, your butterflies go away a little bit. Ben,
Sure.
any thoughts there?
No, I agree. I think, potentially one thing, I didn't know if she was trying to memorize it. Because there were a couple of times where it seemed like she was waiting for a specific word, which I've had happen to me before.
Yeah.
So that was really it. But I understand. I get the nerves thing.
Oh yeah. And I mentioned to her too, as I have with all of you, is you don't have to memorize this. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you forget a word, who cares? It's just let it flow out of you, because you know the story, you live the story. You're not reciting it verbatim. You're just reciting it as you recall it. And all the process work leading up to this is just to get it more ingrained in your brain. So, all right. Well, Lucy, would you like to dive in and share yours?
Yeah, totally. I am definitely nervous just like her, but I think my issue is kind of speeding through things. So it's like kind of like the opposite issue.
That's all right.
but
Just be yourself, Lucy. Just
Okay.
be yourself. And as if you're sitting down and maybe you're sitting at, some bar or whatever's you're comfortable, and you're just sharing this with 5 of your friends.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jasper had been hit by a car and had no chance of survival without swift surgical intervention. I remember it was the winter of 2021, and after my 12-hour shift in the surgical department of a large ER specialty hospital in Paramus, New Jersey, I got into my freezing cold white Volkswagen Passat and drove home into the darkness. My feet and back throbbed as I walked into my apartment. I was absolutely exhausted. I removed my shoes and was so eager to lay down and rest. My fellow on-call anesthesia technicians knew what happened next. In a Shyamalan twist, my phone rings and I knew who was calling. Hi, Lucy. We have a cat with a diaphragmatic hernia. How quickly can you be back at the hospital? I closed my eyes in disappointment. Okay, give me 35 minutes. I put back my scrubs on. I swung by 7-Eleven for an extra large watery coffee and drove 25 minutes back to work. Tired, heavy eyes and all. I walked into the ICU and there was Jasper, a beautiful white cat in sternal recumbency, struggling to breathe in an oxygen cage. I knew time was of the essence. I checked my math for my anesthetic drugs, pulled them up, pulled an assistant from the ICU, set the OR, and hit the ground running. And just like that, I was no longer tired. I felt the adrenaline and urgency of the moment to save a life. I intubated Jasper as fast as possible and asked the surgeon, Dr. Fettig, if I could place 2 cephalic peripheral intravenous catheters. He said, I don't think you're going to be able to, but go for it. Let's just get going. We don't have much time. In the event of an emergency or crash, I wanted multiple points of IV access so I could provide the highest standard of care in that critical moment. My fellow LVTs, you know how good it feels to be able to place that impossible catheter on the first try, let alone 2 of them. And guess what? Jasper ended up needing pressors like norepinephrine, so the small detail ended up making a huge difference. We rushed the patient into the OR and began surgery immediately. Slowly, we began to see the patient's low pulse oximetry, tachycardia, tachypnea, and arrhythmias resolve as the surgeon relieved compression of the heart and lungs. Jasper was in a much better place medically. He responded to norepinephrine and surgical intervention. At that moment, Dr. Fettig, a skilled surgeon, and I felt an empowering sense of teamwork. After an hour and a half of surgery, I moved Jasper into the ICU, knowing that Dr. Fettig and I had just saved a life. As an anesthesia technician, I don't often meet the owners, but I know that they had been up all night worried sick about Jasper. I washed up, rounded my ICU nurses, cleaned my OR, got into my car and drove home at a frigid 2 a.m. But this time I had a warm smile on my face the whole drive home. We had saved another life in the dead of night. Through every exhausting and exhilarating moment, we cared for Jasper and ultimately his owners. So that is why we do what we do. Okay, it's done.
Awesome. Let's hear it for Lucy. Thank you, Lucy. Woo!
Oh God.
No, that was great. So
Thank
let's
you.
some feedback from your audience here.
I thought it was very descriptive. Like you
Thank
can kind of feel your tiredness, your stress. But
Sure.
it's great.
You have a really good hook. Like you know, get your audience's interest super, super early, which is important.
Thank you.
What I liked about it was, I think many of us, if you've done ER, you've had those nights. I felt like I felt like I was there with you. And I think this is a good thing, but it might come across as a bad thing. I was really weird that Jasper was going to die the entire time.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
But I actually think that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Okay. Totally.
Yeah, no, I love all those comments. You're dead on the fact that Ben said like he felt like your tiredness. And I think because you were reading it right here, that when you're on stage, you can even amp that up a little bit more. Just that opening, just like with your body language and just you know, without being over the top, but just let everybody in that audience completely feel it because they've all been there. And like Melissa said, it felt like, you know, she was right there with you every step of the way, having been there. That's exactly what we want, that connection story. And the fact you had a ball in play right off the top. You know, Jasper was hit by a car and we weren't sure he was going to live. And so the whole time she's thinking, he's going to die, he's going to die. She was there waiting to hear what's going to happen. So you had her hook, line, and sinker. Yeah, you know, and Katie, great point there that it's all about specifics, and you did a really good job of bringing specifics into it. And then when you're on stage, I really want to underscore all of you, have fun with this. I don't want it to come off as a, you know, such a serious endeavor that, you know, because we are talking about tough things and then coming out of the other end being, you know, things are good. And here's why we do what we do. But as you all share, just have fun with it.
Totally. I think my main objective is to loosen up and come off as less scripted and kind of put myself back in the moment. So that's my main goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the addition of the watery coffee at 7-Eleven.
Yeah,
like that's going to do anything for me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a little aside like that, just so people can feel it inside of you of what's going on.
Mhm.
So we want to take what Ben experienced and let's ingrain that even more.
Okay,
Thank you though. That was awesome.
thanks.
All right, Ben, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Let me just pull it up. I'm a stander. If your vet hospital's going to treat animals, there's one thing that's super important, and that's that you actually open your doors for business. Well, I thought our project was dead on arrival. I'm Ben Donati. I'm the co-founder of Apex Vets. It's a specialty emergency hospital in Silver Spring, Maryland, not too far from the conference. And I've always really been a person who cares about my tribe and cares about the people around me. I have the Maryland flag on the back of my car. This is where I went to undergrad. I proudly serve on the admissions committee at Penn, where I went to vet school. I talk lovingly about my time in Brooklyn, where I did my internship. But through all of these experiences, it's always been for me about the people and the tribe. And when I became a vet, I knew that I wanted to help pets together. I wanted a team. I wanted that tribe. And my goal was and is to care for the people who care for the animals. So after practicing as an ER doctor and a medical director for a few years, I had found some amazing colleagues and a wonderful now business partner. And we decided, let's jump in. I moved from New Jersey to Maryland after quitting my job into the great unknown. And I worked around the country doing per diem to make money to support the lifestyle of someone trying to start a business, trying to start a hospital. I spent long nights looking at architectural documents, construction documents, legal documents, and I got intimately familiar with being frustrated by architectural documents, construction documents, legal documents. And, really, the thing for me was getting these people together. So I was fortunate enough, 9 people from out of state chose to move to Maryland, doctors and nurses, some from New Jersey, some from Texas. And we actually pulled in 32 other people who had enough trust in me that we would have a hospital for them to work in. And I promised them this date, October 23rd, 2023. October 23rd, 2023. You can all move here. You can buy a house. You can get an apartment. It was all predicated on hearing that from the contractor. So October 23rd, 2023 came, and it was actually my proudest moment as a young entrepreneur and an emergency vet. It was a culmination of friends, colleagues, sweat, tears, all coming together. Everyone came into the building, and it was wonderful. We had coffee together. We're building towers out of spaghetti and marshmallows, painting pumpkins, getting to know one another. And it went on Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we're having this nice lunch outside, beautiful fall day. Ellie Diagnostics, it's independent lab, it's sponsoring a lunch for us. Contractor pulls me aside and says, hey, you guys have 30 minutes. You got to get all your stuff. You got to get out of the building. Electrical inspector drove by. They're not happy that there's so many people in the building. There's stuff we still have to do. You got to get out. There's gonna be a massive fine and we're going to shut down the project if you guys don't. So rather than vomiting in front of 40 people, I went to my business partner and told her, and she actually laughed and said, well, this is an opportunity to build some trust with the tribe you talked about. Roll with the punches. So gathered them all together, said, hey guys, it's just like medicine. You never really know what's going to happen. This wasn't expected, but let's deal with it. Sent everyone home. And, it was really a gut-wrenching moment for me at first, trying to gain the trust of so many people who I had recently met and keep the trust of so many people who had moved down. There was an unknown for them. Other than their paycheck, we still paid everyone. It was, I think, tough for people to go home. But over the next 2 weeks, did some trainings online, emailed each other. Everyone came back and had that trust. And then we actually started practicing together and realized we weren't who we wanted to be. That trust was kind of getting lost. It felt like no one liked anything. Everyone was just talking about their old hospitals, the way they used to like doing things. And I realized that in a place that's predicated on that team and that tribe, some people sometimes just don't fit. And sometimes treating people right is treating people fairly. So when I came to the first horrible moment for me of firing someone, I realized it's really about the team. It's really about that tribe, who fits in. Sometimes it's just a bad fit for that person or for the hospital. So we prioritize the team. Didn't feel that way for a lot of people, and we felt like we were being the place of just letting people go, or people are just leaving. They're upset. But then slowly kind of crept over the next few weeks. Some young leaders who we had identified came to us and said, hey guys, we're actually building something really great here. We know it was tough. We know we had some turnover, but everyone's pretty much bought in. So we've seen the right people for us stay, and we've fed into them and want to continue feeding into them. And I want to continue caring for the people who care for the animals. And I think hopefully we're learning as a team that this is how we build our tribe.
All
Thanks.
right. Well done, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thoughts from the audience here?
As
Melissa,
a
yeah.
practice, yeah, as a practice owner, Ben, I was with you the whole time. And in the beginning, it was like rainbows and flowers, and I was thinking something's going to hit the fan.
Yes.
And I kept waiting for it. And I was like, when is he going to get to that? That's me, because I'm also a practice owner. So I know
Right.
exactly all those things. But loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Lucy?
Yeah, I think his way of presenting seems really like natural and not like he's reading. So that's really, really good. That's something I have to work on.
Yeah, very well done. Katie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking along the same lines as Lucy, like your body language when you're presenting is really good. I taught public speaking in college for like, I guess 5-ish years. So like my biggest thing with students was like, don't look tense, like use your body. Like if you don't, you're going to look stiff. Like if you lock up your knees, you might pass out. So don't do that. And I just like, you had no problem with that. And you just looked very natural and comfortable.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that too. And the funny thing too about video and Zoom here, it does happen to dampen our presence a little bit. So when you're on video, you got to be a little bit more over the top. So I think with the fact that we all got that on video here is going to work really well on stage.
Okay.
I would say right up top, give us your opening line again, would you?
Sure. I have it written somewhere. It's something like, if your veterinary hospital is going to treat animals, there's one thing that's super important, and that's actually opening your doors for business. I thought our project was dead on arrival.
Okay. That was, I know your story, but I just got lost there, believe it or not.
Sure.
When you said our project, I want you to dial it back to that hospital. Our brand new hospital was dead on arrival. Let's let them know exactly what it is. And even though I knew your story, I'm like, well, wait a minute, project. Oh, I had to do the math on it. So yeah, be really crystal clear there.
Okay.
And then, did I miss it? Right after you got there, you had everybody in there. I loved how you set it up with everyone's here to see the new hospital, and then we get thrown out. And it's like, oh my God, what do we do? Your business partner then says, this is a great time to build trust. You built the trust. And when they finally did come back in, did you really land that point? That was it 2 weeks later that they came back and we did finally get our hospital up and running?
Yeah, I can land that better.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if I didn't hear it, I spaced out or whatever, but it was like, I wanted to hear closure to that.
Okay.
Almost, like Melissa was saying, oh, okay, he's gotten through the worst part. Well, actually he hasn't. Now that it's open, there's a big kumbaya, all for one for all, woohoo! But then we realized we had some of the wrong people on board. Oh, so now after it was just a short month or two, I think that you had to go in and now start weeding people out. And so it's nice because it takes you to the problem. You've got a solution. And then there's another even bigger human problem here. And that is we've got to get the right people on board. So you did all that and then you have the close to it. So those are just a couple of areas I'd say try to punctuate for more clarity for your audience. Really make them feel it.
Okay. Sounds great.
All right. Good job. Good job. Okay,
Thank you.
Melissa,
Thanks, guys.
we're ping ponging over to you now.
All right. Here we go. Watch your thoughts. They create your words. Watch your words. They become your actions. Watch your actions. They become your habits. And watch your habits, because those become your character. And watch your character. It becomes your destiny. You are building character, Melissa. My father would often tell me, but I was pretty sure I already had enough. I grew up on a small pig and cattle farm in southern Minnesota, about 25 miles from any civilization. At least that's how I viewed it. I rode the school bus an hour and a half to and from school every single day. And man, oh man, did I envy those city kids, because they had fancy TVs and they had oodles of friends. I had encyclopedias, which I read cover to cover. I also had puzzles, and I had a ping pong table. Little did I know how those puzzles and ping pong games would truly shape my character and prepare me to succeed in life. Since I didn't have a TV, I had to discover a lot of different ways to occupy my time. And my mother loved puzzles. She would open up her blue card table and place it on our green shag carpeting and dump out this gigantic puzzle. And we'd have to sort the flat pieces in one box top and then the other pieces in the other box top. We take those flat pieces and we would make the edge of that puzzle. That went rather quickly. But then we had to do the middle pieces. And when we did the middle pieces, that took much patience and persistence. We had to plant each little puzzle piece there because my mother loved English gardens. They were her favorite puzzles to put together, and they weren't exactly easy. But after hours, well, actually days, weeks, even sometimes months, we would finally have this beautiful English garden emerge. Now, my dad, on the other hand, wasn't much into puzzles. He had these thick, weathered hands, which really weren't very good at picking up puzzle pieces, but he loved to play ping pong. And he and I, on cold, winter, frigid days in Minnesota, which we had many of them, we would go to the basement and play ping pong for hours on end. And he was a highly skilled ping pong player. Like John Deere should have sponsored this man. And he never allowed me to win, and he beat me every single time. The score was typically 21-0. And as I practiced some more and some more, I would get a few points here or there, like maybe 2 or 3 points. And I remember in college coming home to play him, I scored my all-time high of 18 points. But he never let me win. And I was very frustrated with this condition. And I often would throw my paddle down, stomp my foot, stick out my lower lip and say, "Dad, it's not fair. You never let me win." And my dad, with his rugged farmer face, would get calm and put a little smile at the edge of his lips and say, "Melissa, it looks like you're going to have to practice a little bit harder." And I would swallow hard and pick up my paddle, go back to the table, determined to get better and better at ping pong. It wouldn't be until my senior year of veterinary school when I would discover how puzzles and ping pong games were truly preparing me for this veterinary career. You see, the edges of the puzzle is what veterinary school gives us. They give us the framework for critical thinking and for problem solving. And then the middle pieces are the patients, the clients, the client history, the diagnostic. All of those things fill in the middle of the puzzle, which hopefully we will eventually see the picture emerge, and then we can make the proper diagnoses. I use this puzzle analogy quite frequently with my clients, and I tell them the more puzzle pieces we have, the better picture I can see to diagnose your pet. And the fewer puzzle pieces that we have, the more difficult it becomes to actually diagnose that pet. But with enough information, we typically can see that diagnosis emerge. So what about ping pong games? Well, it turns out that my dad's desire to never let me win actually helped me, because I learned that failure is not the end of the world, but rather a stepping stone for growth. No matter what, I would practice and practice and practice, and I would never, ever win. This reminds me, and perhaps reminds you, a little bit of veterinary medicine. A lot of times we are practicing and we are seeing those clients and having those difficult patients or those difficult cases. And despite no matter how hard we try, we never win. And it feels like we're failing over and over again. But we do learn and we become much more resilient every single time that happens. In my 26-year journey as a veterinarian, puzzles and ping pong games have truly shaped my character. I have put together some pretty difficult puzzles, despite not having all the pieces. And I have also learned to fail gracefully and pick up my paddle and keep on learning. Your thoughts create your words, and your words create your actions, and your actions, those become your habits, and your habits become your character, and your character becomes your destiny. I challenge each and every one of you to look at the puzzles you have put together in your life and the ping pong games that you have played. Do you throw down your paddle, put your hands on your hips and say, it's not fair? Or do you pick up that paddle and keep practicing a little bit more? How thoughtful are you about the way you react to your life? Because your thoughts really do become your destiny.
Oh, excellent. Katie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I liked it. Was very, I mean, this sounds kind of like dumb feedback because like stories are obviously personal, but like my dad was my softball coach growing up. So like I feel your frustration when you're talking about like the ping pong and paddle and like wanting to give up because I was like, oh yeah, I've absolutely been there before. So I think what I really liked about it is that like you highlight some of like your struggles and like your like the obstacles in your way, which like is super, super important to storytelling. And then I really like your analogies too. Like analogies has really helped to illuminate those points. So those were the two big things that I really enjoyed about your story.
Thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, I know. I thought it was great. I think there's a lot of image. I'm kind of like an imagery person. I thought there was a lot of imagery. Like I could picture you waiting for the bus and picture like when you said fancy TV, like the person who says fancy TV, like that was probably stuck in your mind, like those city kids with city kids with their fancy TVs. So I thought it was really great and similar to, you know, to your previous comment, like sort of like what's the hook, like where are we going with the puzzle and ping pong thing. I thought it was really great and kind of tying it back together, you know, sort of beginning to end. The only thing that, and I'd be interested to know if it stuck out for anyone else. The only thing that it didn't confuse me, but when you said your dad should be sponsored by John Deere for ping pong, for a minute, like that was the only thing where I was otherwise I was glued to your story. And I was like, why is John Deere sponsored? And I assume it's because Minnesota, it's a big company, but I didn't know if there's it made my brain wonder if there's a connection between John Deere and ping pong. But everything, but like everything else really, like, like I could picture the edge of the puzzle on the blue table on the green shag carpet. I think that's what you said. So but yeah, I thought it was great.
Well, that's a really good point about the John Deere thing. That was actually just a suggested insert that I gave Melissa to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of tongue in cheek. But to Ben's point, if it created a detour in his mind for a second, then maybe that little joke is not working. Something to consider.
That was just me.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Very interesting. Yeah. Lucy?
It was so well written. I think the way you structured it kind of was full circle. And I think metaphors for me are like a really great way to conceptualize the point of the story. And I just think it was like a home run. I think it was really, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And Melissa, how did it feel to you?
Pretty good. Good. I mean, I was nervous. I'll be honest. Presenting to a computer is weird.
It is.
And I mean, not that I haven't presented on a computer, but in a different situation. So it just felt a little bit awkward. I think maybe in front of people it'll be different. I don't know. So, but yeah, I'm glad it's done.
Well, number one, you came off exceptionally well in Zoom and presenting to a computer. Number two, you all will have a complete and utterly different experience when you're on stage. You're having fun. You're just, you're talking to your peeps out there in the crowd, and it will be a completely different experience. And, the other thing is we won't be using the podium on stage. You'll have a lav on, as we talked about. And so you'll be able to work the stage and just have some fun in the telling of your story. All right. Well done. Any questions for me?
Do you guys think mine is like short compared to everyone else's? Or is it okay?
Short?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Okay, good.
Not at all. Not at all. They're all roughly about the same.
Oh, okay.
So being short's okay. Having brevity is really, we want to keep it moving along as you tell the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
I prefer, and honestly, like I'm looking for ways to cut mine down. I think shorter stories sometimes are more powerful and harder to write.
Yeah. You want from this to this to this. You just want to keep it moving forward. It was really underscored to me way back when we were raising our kids. They're all grown now, but when they were little kids, Little Mermaid was out, right? And I mean, VHS, we plugged it in, and I probably watched that movie 100 times because our kids would just come, let Little Mermaid, let's plug it in. And on like number 50 viewing, I realized that there in all of those animated movies, especially Little Mermaid, there is not a wasted word. Every word, every sentence leads to the next thing happening, leads to the next, activity, event happening. And I realize I have to do that because every syllable costs them money. Every word, sentence costs them money. Anything that is superfluous to the story costs them money to animate. So they go in and they really tighten that up. And in doing so, then they have these incredible stories that they're able to share. And they just pull out little clauses and little phrases that aren't really adding anything to the story or a little bit filler and keep moving forward. So that was something that struck me many decades ago now. But that's what we're trying to do when it's all said and done. Keep the specificity. Keep it so they can feel it. They're there with you going along. But find the brevity in the telling of that. And then, of course, you'll be on stage and be able to use your hands and your facial gestures and your body language and all that to really amplify the impact of your story.
Cool.
All right, what I will do is I will post this video on our resource page. So you all have it if you want to go back and listen to your story or the others again. And then we will be in touch, either Aaron or Andrea or myself, about what is actually happening on Thursday at what time. Because I talked to Andrea about, could we get there an hour early so you can all get comfortable with the stage and, do some practicing and so forth. And she's going to get back to me on that. So we'll get the full schedule for you. But, be ready to go by 4:30-ish on Thursday. And yeah, we got 1 hour. We want to get up there. I'll do the introductions. You all will present your stories. And then we're hoping we'll have like 15 minutes left over for anybody else from the audience to come up, and say, oh, Melissa, your story reminded me of one. And then, see if we can get some others to come up and do kind of an open mic storytelling night after you all do yours.
Sounds great.
All right. And if you haven't sent me how you want to be introduced, please go ahead and email that to me today. And that way I can get my script pulled together as well.
Awesome.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you all. And if you have any questions between now and then, you know where to find me.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks,
Have a
Mark.
great one.
Bye,
All
guys.
right, quick question.
Bye.
Bye, guys. When you mentioned how we want you to introduce us, I
Mhm.
might have missed that in a meeting. What do you want?
Just an email. I just need a sentence or
Got
two
it.
of
Okay.
how would you like me to introduce you
Got it.
in your position in your hospital or whatever it is. Just a quick line that says next up,
Okay, cool.
Yep. That's all we need.
Cool. Yeah, because I kind of put an intro like in my thing, so I didn't know if.
Yeah. I'll just need something like literally a one-liner, name, title, whatever you want said about you, that then you'll come in and take the stage.
Perfect. Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Mark.
All right, Ben. Hey,
All right. See you in a few
enjoy
days.
St. Louis. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you. Have a safe trip out to DC.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. Good to
Take
see you.
care.
Bye.